Hello.
Hi, it is 10 p.m. on Tuesday, and it's time for A Studying Purple.
I hope you guys didn't miss us last week.
Yeah.
Of course, brought to you by WECB, the underground sound of Emerson College.
Yeah. And today we're diving into episode 5, entitled Dancing Bears. Yeah.
Exciting.
Yeah. And this technically wasn't a murder. It was technically like an assassination, but it was very gruesome, so we're going to talk about it. Also,
we're not going to talk about the
gruesome.
gruesome.
Yeah, actually we're not going to talk about it. Thank you. Bye.
No, but the gruesome part, we're not going to get into details.
We're not, yes.
Which leads us into our content warning, as always. Before we dive into anything, we just want to give like a heads up, although we dive into... we're not going to dive into gruesome details, but this is still like a crime show, and this episode covers some like heavy topics, as always, including violence, murder, abuse, mentions of blood, other like triggering topics. So we know this content is not for everyone, so just like be aware that like, hey, maybe you don't want to listen, and that's completely fine. Like, hey, take care of yourself.
Yeah. So as always, if you are okay with this, please stay, and if you're not, leave.
Forever. Just kidding.
Not forever, but like...
After like the first like 5 minutes, we don't say anything.
Yeah. And break.
Okay. So let's get into the background. Why we're really here.
Yeah. So today we're going back in time to 1917, or like around that time, to Imperial Russia.
Woo.
Yeah.
I feel like history class again. Didn't like it then, still don't like it now.
No,
but murder.
I love history. I feel like I'm like away from my mic. It's weird. I feel like every time I find like some issues with the technology.
Huh. It's actually the mic's on the ceiling and you're like standing like a bat. Anyway.
Yeah. Actually, I'm like bent over my chair right now, and I'm like my leg is on the table, and then the mic is hanging off of the ceiling, and yeah.
It's like a like this light.
Hollie can confirm.
Lamps. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm sitting quite normal.
Anyways, so we're going back in time to 1917, and we're going to talk about the Romanov family assassination. And the Roman family was like the last imperial dynasty. I don't know how to pronounce that, of Russia, ruling from 1613 to like up until the revolution in 1917. And basically we're specifically focusing on the last of them, like Tsar Nicholas II of Russia, his wife Alexandra Feodorovna, and their 5 kids, Olga, Tatiana, Maria, Anastasia, and Alexei. That's how the names are actually pronounced. But
no, but real, it's just the accent's cool.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, so the Romanovs were like a really big and loving family. The Tsar and Tsarina, they were like, or like in Russian, Tsaritsa, they were like, they were cousins of some sort. I don't remember if they were first cousins or second cousins, but yeah, that was a thing.
It was just to keep the bloodline pure. So, like, it was just always like, oh, let's marry our first cousins, guys, because we can't get purer than that.
No, I think it was actually, I read somewhere there was, like, looked down upon, but, like, at that time already, but they were, like, really, really in love, and they were like, no, we love each other, and...
Because we're related.
Yes.
And Sweet Home Alabama.
No, so this is Russia.
Oh, could have fooled me. Could have fooled.
Anyways. So, yeah. So, Tsar Nikolai, he was like a not really good Tsar, because his dad really kind of like sheltered him from the politics and didn't really prepare him well, and then his dad died, and Nicholas kind of just like became Tsar, but he wasn't really interested in ruling a country. He didn't really know a lot about what was going on in the country. He was really like... He was mostly interested in, like, you know, making presents to people and, like, being wealthy and, like, his family. Like, I read somewhere that he was interested in women and making presents to women, and I think that's true, but also, like, he loved his family and he loved his wife and, like, all of his kids and all of his daughters.
I think it was more like a gift giver than like, hey, let's just like be a ruler.
His love language was gifting.
So if you're single, he's probably dead. Anyways,
we're gonna move on.
Just kidding. We know he's dead.
Anyways, so they were like a big loving family, and he wasn't really a good ruler. And then World War I happened, and Russia was trying to show Europe that they're like big, strong fighters. We're great.
We're macho.
Yeah, macho
big
men.
guns.
And they were really like pushing like declaring war to Germany, and they were like really pushing like themselves to their limit. Like, even though they didn't really have the resources to continue the war, they really wanted to show that they're like, we're the coolest. So things in Russia became kind of bad because of the World War. Like, the train system was working full time, transporting things from from the front lines to the center, and then there was like all this ammunition, all the food, everything was going towards the front lines. And then also the center, like St. Petersburg, started filling up. There was too many people because people were moving away like towards the center because there were more jobs, there was more stuff to do. Also soldiers, like wounded soldiers, were being transported to the center to go to the hospitals. And they would recover, and they would like go around, like hang out in the city. So it was just like overfilling. There was too many people. Also, yeah, like the Tsar was away. Like, my brain is breaking because I don't know if I should do it in an English accent or a Russian accent.
Do it however you want, whatever's comfortable.
So like the Tsar was on the front lines, and he was like leading their armies, and his family was working in hospitals caring for wounded soldiers because that was like the customs back then. His daughters were helping out. And everybody was moving towards the centers, and now people who are like the bourgeoisie, like the richer people, were feeling the effects of the war, and they really didn't like it. And they were talking about how like everything sucks because now they have to stand in line for bread. They have to stand in line for practically anything. Like, there's too many people. And
I feel like today, that's like, a common thing. Like, okay, yeah, no kidding. I'm gonna go and be like, okay, yeah, I'm making my little bread. And then we're in line for it. I don't know. I feel like they're being a little over dramatic, but like, I guess. You stand in
line for bread? I don't know.
Yeah, so there's other people, especially busy in the morning.
No, but you don't understand. Have you seen pictures of Russian, like lines? They would wrap around the city. Like it's ironic because this was back then, like before the revolution, and they were talking about how they don't like standing in lines, but then they had the revolution and it was worse. I was like, great. Good job.
It didn't work, guys.
Good job. Yeah. So people were kind of like disgruntled by this whole situation, and they were talking about offing the Tsar. They were like, this is not working for us anymore. This guy is a bad ruler. He's a bad politician. He makes a lot of mistakes. He doesn't know how to lead a country. He also like has this innocent belief in the Russian people, and people were just like, yeah, he's so innocent, and he's kind of like whatever.
He's kind of like whatever.
Yeah. Also, a fun fact, by the time the Russian Revolution came around, the Romanov family, like, their net worth was twice the amount of Elon Musk's net worth, like, right now. Like, back then, so, yes. So, like, twice as much today.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, I read that a couple of days ago, though, and video was made, like, a couple of weeks ago, so maybe it's less now. Maybe it's, like, 1.5. But, you know.
But you get the point. I feel like it's still gonna surpass Elon Musk.
They were really wealthy. Like, they lived in very lavish, like, things. And people were kind of, like, felt disconnected from them. And everybody hated him. And everybody started hating his wife as well. Because they thought she was a German spy. Because there was the whole thing with Rasputin that is, like, that's a lot to get into. But there was this guy, Rasputin, who was, like, the family friend / physician / like he hung out with Alexandra a lot, and he was weird, and then he was killed and nobody investigated it, and they were like, something's fishy there, because if nobody's investigating, that means that it was okay for him to die, And so maybe she's also a spy, and he was a spy, and everyone's a spy. So yeah. So things in Russia weren't good. People, basically it was like the people against the Tsar, and nobody liked him. And
sounds like a lot of today.
Yeah, I know.
Anyway.
And yeah, this was like in 1916, and people are talking about killing the Tsar. And and
then it led to a big revolution.
There's actually, I always thought there was one revolution, but there's two revolutions, because there was like the February Revolution or something, or January Revolution, one of them, I don't know. And then there was a second one later, the October Revolution. I know, it was really weird. So first, what happened was that the Tsar was in the front lines, and things were bad, and everyone was against the royals. And in February of 1916, people were like, you know what? Things are bad, and we don't like the Tsar, and actually, we can do whatever we want. So 300,000 people protested in the capital, and it was called the Bloody Sunday because people just went out into the square and they were protesting. And then the guards, like the soldiers, shot into like above the crowd. They gave like warning shots, and nobody moved or did anything. So they started shooting at the crowd, and nobody did anything. Like nobody dispersed. And yeah. So basically, like in February, like February 27th, everything went downhill, and it said that like this revolution happened in like 72 hours because there's the crowd of people, the Bloody Sunday, all of this happened, and the Tsar is away on the front lines. And so on March 2nd, they tell the Tsar what happened, and he's like trying to negotiate, and they're like, no, you don't understand. It's too late for negotiation. You have to resign because nobody likes you. And so on March 2nd, Nikolai signs his resignation for himself and also his son, like his youngest son, Alexei. Even though that wasn't technically allowed, you can't sign the resignation for your son, but he was little, and he was just like, he wants to protect him. And there was a temporary government put in place, and that promised a greater future for Russia, which sounds like a deja vu to me. It's like, make Russia great again. You know?
Wow, we're really connecting back to some things happening in America. That's wild.
Yeah. Also, can we look up their ages really quick? They were really young. So his kids were really young at the time. Please hold. Because I meant to do that, but I didn't put their ages here. Oh, I ruined this.
What do you mean ruin? What?
Yeah, don't worry about it. It's okay.
Yeah. What?
Did you find it? They were
Did they die really young?
They did. They were ranging between the oldest was 19, and the youngest was 10.
Yeah, Maria was 19. And then you have Olga, which was... I'm trying to do math. Huh?
Why are you trying to do math?
Because it shows the years. So so it's 23 years old when they died.
Yeah, they were all really young.
17 for Anastasia.
Mm-hmm.
And then Tatiana was 21.
Yeah, and their brother was... You're missing one. Their brother was little. He was in his teens.
Alexei was 14.
Yeah. So yeah, they were little kids. And so the Tsar resigned for him and his son. And on March 8th, they were taken, they were imprisoned for their own safety, air quotes, in a mansion. But still, they were imprisoned.
You put mansion and prison in the same sentence. Yeah. I wouldn't call that the same thing.
Yeah. And yeah, this was the February Revolution, and it was in 1917, and they were imprisoned in the Alexander Palace. And their servants were imprisoned as well, with them.
So they had their own servants in their prison?
Yes.
Still waiting on them and doing it like their everyday lives?
Yeah, they could also like go outside and like garden and stuff, and there was like a lot of lavish things that were still happening. But they basically resigned and they were like simple people now, in a palace.
I'm risking to see the fact of where was the imprisonment. Like, this seems like a great life. Can you sign me up? I want to be in prison that way.
You don't.
My own servants, maybe.
So the politics were still really bad because the temporary government was promising to make Russia great again, but nobody did anything. Nothing was happening. And this is when Lenin actually crept out of Germany and he gathered the Bolsheviks. This is like, I'm skimming over the facts. There was a bunch of things that were happening, like a bunch of like tactical movements, but
it's not really
long story
important.
short, he gathered the Bolsheviks. And the second revolution happened where they overtook the temporary government. The Bolsheviks came to power, and the Romanovs were imprisoned again. They were moved to Tobolsk, Siberia, and then to the house. I think it was a Ipatiev house in Yekaterinburg. I can't.
Yekaterinburg?
I can't because my brain's thinking in English right now. Yekaterinburg. Wait, whatever. I don't know. I can't. And they thought they were being taken to Moscow, but they were basically taken to Siberia. And the conditions were really, really bad in the second prison. It was a smaller house. They only had 3 servants, I think. They were given curfews and times when they were given food. They weren't allowed to go outside. The windows were painted over with white, so they couldn't go, they couldn't even see outside. And at some point when Anastasia looked out, I think it was May 15th or something. No, it was painted on May 15th. At some point she looked out of the windows and she was shot at. She wasn't injured, but she was shot at. So it was really bad. And they keep writing in their diaries at the time about how everything's bad. But they were really they loved being together, and so they thought that as long as they're together it's okay.
How naive. Sorry.
Anyways,
foreshadowing.
Yeah, the rooms were sealed and covered with newspapers and stuff. And there was only one window, one source of ventilation, which was a fortechka. I don't know how it's translated into English. It was a tiny, tiny window in the Grand Duchess's bedroom. And you couldn't peek out into the outside. And yeah, initially they thought they were gonna go to England to be under the protection of King George V, who was Nikolai's cousin, or a relative. But that fell through because George was also in World War I, and he was
I don't got time for this.
Yeah, he noticed that there was a lot of people who were trying to kill the Tsar, and they were he was I don't want that responsibility. I don't want all of these Russians coming over here. And,
I got my other problems over here.
No, thank you. And so the family was just living there. They were hoping to escape at some point. They were sewing diamonds into the girls' corsets and stuff like that, and yeah. And then we get to
dun dun dun.
Yeah.
The crime. Okay. So, at midnight of the night of July 16th to the 17th in 1918, the Romanovs were told that they were being transported again for their safety and that they all need to come down to the basement.
You sound like a news reporter right now.
Sorry, I'm doing too many TV news journalism classes. My bad. But the Romanov family went down to the basement accompanied by, their 4 servants. A court physician, Eugene Botkin. Lady in waiting, Anna Dendova. Sorry. I'm
Do you want me to say their names?
I'm in Portuguese. In Portuguese it seems right. And then you're something different. Footman.
Alexei Trup. I don't know, that's his name. Trup.
And head cook.
Ivan Kharitonov. I don't know. I don't think it really matters.
In the basement.
So there was a guard. His name was Yakov Mikhailovich Turovskiy, and he was a Russian old Bolshevik who was basically in charge of watching over the family. He took the family down to the basement, and when they were in the basement, Turovskiy There you go. I pronounced the name for you. Turovskiy.
In the basement, announced to the family that they were going to be executed. So they were shot and killed. So Nikolai and a penned note. My God.
Yeah, they shot at, like, because they announced it. They were like, so under the orders of, like, the Bolsheviks, the Tsar has to be executed. And they shot at him, and he died on impact.
Yeah.
Like, he was just, like, they shot, he died. That's it. And then there's a pandemonium that ensued, because it was, like, they were all in a tiny bedroom. You can look at a photo, like, there's a photo of the room afterwards. It's, like, terrible.
Maybe don't look at the photo, low key, because I don't want to look at it.
It's also on our Instagram.
So people were running, screaming. The guards were like shooting like into the smoke of it all because everyone was trying to like not get dead. So
yeah,
they were just trying to escape with their lives the best that they could. But
I also, when I wrote this out, I wrote like the exact details. So like if you wanna PG-13 this a little bit,
it's fine.
It's fine.
It's okay. But because the girls were like preparing to escape, it was like later discovered that they were like sewing diamonds and jewels like into their clothing to be able to like have money for when they did escape. And that
there's like a rumor that bullets were ricocheting off of their like corsets, which is terrible. Like,
because like of the diamonds, but technically it did save their lives. So like,
I don't know if that's true.
It's
though.
not really, but like
I don't know if that was true. There was a rumor that happened, but I don't know if that's true.
Like, imagine it was though. It's just like pew, pew. It's like Iron Man. Sorry. Anyway, and then when they were done shooting, they noticed that one of the servants and like one of the justices was still alive, and so they bayoneted them to death.
Yeah.
Don't look that up either.
Did you look that up?
I already know what that is.
Okay.
For no particular reason.
I don't think there are any pictures of that, because they like really, like, Russians really kept everything down on the low. Like, they were just like, no, nothing happened.
Also, like, that time, they weren't gonna be like, yeah, let's take a photo.
Well, they took a photo of, like, the truck, and they took a photo of, like, the room afterwards. It's the room, it's not, there's nothing in it, so it's not really scary. Like, I was able to look at it, and, you know, that's...
You're scared again.
Yes, so, like, it's really, it's very eerie, but it's not scary.
It's not scary.
It's just
scary.
like
it's
a wall
like...
with a bunch of holes in it. It's creepy.
It's just like extra.
So yeah, so it was like a very, very gruesome death. And basically there was like 11 people executed at once. And also you can't really call that an execution. It was terrible. Yeah. And basically, like, then they tried to cover it up by taking all of the bodies and loading them onto a truck.
And then putting them in a nice little forest and being like...
Yeah, they, like, took them and, like, threw them into... There was a bunch of other steps taken, like, they burned some stuff and people, and, like, there was also some acid involved and, like, some stuff like that.
Blah, blah.
Fun. Yeah.
Such fun things, guys.
And they threw them, like, in a puddle after all of that. And they thought it was a hole, but it was a puddle. And then they realized that it was too shallow. And so they were like, well, we're gonna come back tomorrow to finish this, I guess.
Like, these people were so smart. They were like, hole. It's a puddle, it's a splash. If you have a reflection...
Yeah. But there was also in, like, Siberia, they're just like, I don't know, whatever. Yeah, so they ended up coming back the next morning and, like, reburying everyone in a different place. Yeah. And so now we're diving into, like, the investigation part. I wrote investigation and trial. It was Russia. I think that says it all.
Nah.
There wasn't really an investigation. So, like, initially, the Bolsheviks said that they did execute the Tsar. But they denied any information regarding any other family members. They were, like, initially, they were just like, yeah, they're safe. They're somewhere else. We moved them.
Yeah, it was just a death. Like, that's all he wanted. Like, that's because of stepping down and resigning.
Yeah. Like, basically, the assassination, air quotes, happened on July 17th, or, like, 16th to 17th.
Because it was, like, at nighttime, so it's really, like...
And on July 19th, they announced that Nikolai the Bloody was shot, and their family was taken to his family was taken to a different place, and then that's it. It was just kind of like left in the open, and so people were really speculating what happened. They were like, "Where is the family?" They thought that they were safe, but they really were kind of preoccupied with all the other stuff, like standing in lines and like the revolution and the war and all of that, and they really didn't have time to speculate about what happened and like figure out what happened.
It just wasn't much of like trial.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, oh,
yeah,
this is just a thing that happened, and like they weren't gonna go and question it, because I feel like who's in a position of power to in that circumstance?
yeah, it's also Russia.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then in 1919, there's a guy called Nikolai Sokolov, yeah, who was investigating the murders. Like, he went and he took pictures of where it was, like, allegedly, like, burial sites and stuff. He found, like, a dog's remains or something. I don't know, it was something weird. And he took pictures of where the truck got stuck in the mud initially, where they, like, threw people in the puddle. But then, like, not knowing that was the actual burial site. But then he died of a heart attack before finding anything conclusive.
Bruh.
Yeah. And only in 1991, scientists identified, like, most of the like, remains. Like, that is, like, almost 80 years later. So, yeah, nobody really looked into it. But I think they initially discovered, like, a lot, like, most, like, one of the burial sites, and there was, like, 9 bodies there, but 11 people were shot, so they couldn't find the remains of, like, Alexei, the youngest brother, and one of his sisters, and they thought it was Anastasia. Either Anastasia or Maria, but they thought it was Anastasia. And this led to a lot of speculation and interest in the fate of the Romanov family.
Because they're like, where is these other two?
Yeah.
Which, going into the media impact and kind of like how the Romanov was becoming so popular and why people were more talking about it. So it was speculated that, of course, Anastasia survived the shooting, as more people didn't, like, they were just told that, like, oh, the family was fine.
Yeah.
And that, like, they didn't know that.
I also should mention that because they were cousins, like, they had 4 girls first, and then they had the boy, who was technically the heir to the throne.
Yeah.
But he had hemophilia, I think that's what it's called. Like, the blood, what is it called? It's not a disease, like, condition, where if you, like, get a scratch or, like, a bruise, you don't stop bleeding, like, your blood never, like...
Anemic?
Like, no, it's not, no. It was a condition that he had, like, so he was really frail and sickly, and so that's why people are also, that's why people were also, like, really, concerned about the future of Russia and being like, he can't rule. So, like, and you only have daughters, and he can't be the next heir, and this is not okay. But, yeah, so they thought that Anastasia survived, and he probably died because of, like, he probably escaped, but then he died because of, like, injuries,
Yeah, because, like, how far they would have to go and, like, what they would have to transverse, especially, like, being exposed to different things, like, probably would have been bad for him, just, like, his health and all that. But they were assuming that because of the girls sewing in, like, the diamonds and jewels into their corset and their clothing, that they were, that Anastasia survived because of the bullets ricocheting off of the corset, which I feels crazy that would happen, but people did believe it. And people thought that due to the lack of information that they could have been potential survivors, since Russia really didn't say anything about, like, what happened to the family, so it left a lot of people just up in the air of, like, what could have happened, but, like, they sadly did kill him.
Yeah, so this led to, like, a number of people just coming out and being like, yes. No, I am Anastasia. No, I am Anastasia. There's so many of those people. Yeah.
Like, it's like a I'm Radio Rebel thing. No, I'm Radio Rebel. Sorry. But one of those people that feels like the most mention of and just like fits this Kate with Anna Anderson. And so when people started to pretend to be Anastasia, Anna claimed to be her in like the early 1920s, as well as it wasn't very well. Like, Anna wasn't her real name in the end, but eventually like spent a lot of time in Germany, and then eventually like migrated to the US, and just spending a lot of time going back and forth between the two places. And so why people were like, oh, maybe it is her, because trying to escape from Russia, not that far. If so,
I also read that she spoke German. She didn't know another language, but allegedly she had like a Russian accent, and people were like, she has amnesia.
She was there. She was there for the events. PTSD really took her over. Anyway, but eventually marrying a history professor, which I feel like is funny for Anastasia. I don't know, like coming from like such a high class and then being like, yeah, I'm gonna marry like a U.S. history professor. No diss to history professors.
Jack Manahan.
Yeah.
That's a funny last name.
I know. And then...
No offense to the Manahans out there.
No, lots of offense. Like Anna Anderson, who probably wanted like more of the fame and glory of like being Anastasia. She also just wasn't mentally well. She was going in and out of asylum. She was committed for trying to kill herself. And just a lot of the family members or people that knew of the Romanovs were like, yeah, that's not Anastasia. Like, you're lying. But people still tend to believe it, even though it was like all these like close family members to the family that was like,
Well, apparently she looked like her, so.
But like they were like, but the really close ones were like, that's not her.
Yeah.
And which is funny. Why would people still think that it was her if like even the people that were the closest to her were saying no? And then she eventually lives a life of legal battles against the family for pretending to be Anastasia when she was clearly not. And the court eventually dealt that she did not provide enough evidence to be Anastasia, which I don't know what you would come up with. Be like, yeah, I'm me. This is her.
Bring a picture.
Like, I also feel like if you were to become like someone else besides Anastasia, why would you pick Anna Anderson like as a name?
I don't know.
I feel like it's strange. I feel like it was overall just like weird. And she eventually turned out when she died in
she died in 1984.
Died in 1984. Just to discover that it was a woman named Francisca, and then
I can't pronounce that. I'm not German. Different angry language. Shanazovska?
Shanskovska. Anyway.
I don't know. Yes.
Sizegoska.
Her name was Francisca.
But it eventually actually inspired a lot of people off of her life story to create a lot of films and books, and she got a lot of publicity. I feel like she was very much an attention seeker even before pretending to be Anastasia. She pretended to also be other people.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, she always was changing names. It just wasn't a very like sane woman, and like why she got committed to asylum. The other people aren't like that far into the story.
That's interesting. Also, it's also weird, like Anna Anderson, but like Anastasia, I don't know. That's always like when I watched the Disney movie when I was little, it always pissed me off because Anastasia, like the short version of Anastasia is Nastya.
Yeah.
Like you would be called Nastya, you wouldn't be called Anna. So it was always like, this is wrong.
I wonder if she just did it claim, like, if it actually was real, that she just wanted to change her name so that way she wouldn't be found by Russian government again. So that's why she would choose something like that, so that way it seems very different culture than what she actually is. But maybe I'm wrong.
I mean, there is, like, Anna is a Russian name, but yeah, like, I don't know.
But Anderson?
Anderson.
It's like Andy Anderson for How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. Like, no thing. No.
Yeah.
That seems like a very white name. Anywho.
Well, okay.
I don't know the origins behind it, but I feel like...
Anyways. There's also, like, the opposite side of it, where people were claiming that they killed the family. And they really wanted the fame of killing the Tsar, because it was, like, a lot of power came with that. Like...
Because nobody really liked him.
Yeah, nobody liked him, and it was also, like... The royal family in Russia, they're, like, chosen by God. So they're kind of like saints. And so you would idolize them like saints. And so killing a saint was just, like... It was, like, a big thing.
They, to them, did, like, a big sin. So, like, they were like, okay, let's kill, like, the sinner. Because that's what God would want. Since, like, clearly they were not able to fulfill God's wishes and disrespected God in that way. That they would want to kill the family.
You think they how do you mean?
Like, from resigning, because this is supposed to be, like, this, like, prophecy that was bestowed upon them by God himself. And that, like... This was what they were supposed to do, and they disrespected God by not fulfilling that and just doing a new heir and continuing this bloodline.
That's interesting. I haven't thought about that.
I mean, that's just, like, my perspective of, if this is supposed to be this all-powerful being, then, like...
Yeah, like, you can't resign from being a saint.
Like, that's just...
Hi, sorry. Here's my resignation. I'm putting my 2 weeks in.
Like, and so, to them, it was like, okay, like, they sinned against God in that way, and disrespected what it means. So.
That's interesting. Yeah, I know when they resigned, people were, like, really upset, because they were like, we're abandoned by the royal family. Even the royal family doesn't want to take care of this country. So it's like, that's it. Yeah, I almost swore.
Bad.
But I didn't. Yeah, so yeah.
There's a lot of power dynamic.
Yeah. Like, yeah, it was, like, about being remembered. It was about claiming a spot in history. You wanted to be the man who killed the Tsar. And
which is so weird. Why would you want to be known for killing someone? I feel like we go back to this, like, every time, because it's the same thing with John Bonet. It was the same thing with, like, Jack the Reaper. Like, why is there always someone being like, yeah, I want to kill for fame? Like, even if they didn't do the deed, they're still claiming to have done it, when there's a lot of people out there that are literally hiding these deeds about killing someone.
Yeah.
And eventually getting caught, and they're like...
But it's also interesting because there are people, like, yes, there are people who claim to kill, like, ordinary people, and they want the fame of killing ordinary people. But there's also people who claim, like, who come forward and claim these big crimes. And it's like, why do you want to be someone who took away, like, the only way I can phrase it right now is, like, the joy that of like, you know, the humanity was experienced. Like, I don't know, I'm thinking of, like, John F. K. It was, like, people wanted to be the ones who killed him, but it's also, like, why do you want... Like, people liked him. Like, why do you want to be the one who killed someone everybody liked? Or, like, not everybody, you know, I'm speaking of, like... Whatever. But, like, a lot of people like these people. Like, why do you want to be someone to take away the joy from the world?
Because there is a whole portion that didn't like them because of resigning. And like I was saying, like, they basically, like, sinned in their eyes. So, they were like, ugh, these people left us for, like, to be forgotten and taken over by this, like, temporary government at the time. And so they were kind of vengeful, I'm guessing, in that way. And there's probably, like, groups out there that were like, yeah, this is, like, great, let's try and kill. But
yeah. But there's, like, photos of the people who were part of the assassination because they like, made sure to take photos together. They have, like, group pictures. It's really, like, swim team vibe. Like, what?
It was, like, that, like, student reunion.
I know.
Like, yay!
And it's like, this is not cool. What do you... And then they were, like, writing about their experiences, like, no.
But they thought it was cool, and so having that
guess.
publicity and fame,
Yeah.
like, connected to them. Like, they thought, like, this is so great, and, like, hard to tell them. It's not.
Yeah, so it was, like, there's, like, the two sides. People pretending to be Anastasia and people pretending to kill the Tsar. But unfortunately, in the 2000s, it was confirmed that, like, the missing remains, they found like a gravesite a couple of, like, it wasn't even feet, it was like right, I think it was like several inches away from the original gravesite. It was like so close, it was crazy. They found a second gravesite, and the two missing, like, remains were found in that gravesite. So yeah, they weren't survivors, which is very tragic. But it's interesting because, like, why are we still talking about it? And it's because, like, yes, as we were talking about this, it's like, it's kind of relevant to history.
Kind of relevant right now with, like, make Russia great again.
And two, it's kind of like people refuse to believe that, like, Anastasia didn't survive. Or, like, Anastasia and Alexei, even though there's so many there's so much evidence pointing towards them not surviving, and, like, there's testimonies, there is, like, not photographs, unlike the Jack the Ripper cases, thank God. Like, going back to Jack the Ripper, they took pictures and they just uploaded. I feel like there has to be, like, some sort of wall, like, paywall but not paywall, you know, being like
do you want to see this gruesome stuff?
Yeah.
Click yes, click no.
Like, are you human, but, like, are you prepared for this?
Do you have bleach handy?
Exactly, because it's like, I don't want to just open images on, like, Google and be like, I don't know, I don't want to see that.
Like,
so yeah,
assaulted by the eyes.
yes. So yeah, so there weren't images, but there was, like, evidence, there was testimonies, there was, like, DNA, there was all of this stuff that points towards her not making it, but people still cling to this idea, and, like, it's just interesting that we want to believe in, like, people prevailing and, like, miraculous escapes over, like, the brutality of history. I don't know. Like, why can't, like, what does it mean to accept, like, their deaths?
I feel like it's a common theme that we've been talking about is that people want to keep up that hope. They want to believe in something.
Mm-hmm.
Why people still want to find the people that killed John Bonet, and, like, why the dad is still looking for so long, and why that hope still kept up for as long as it did, like, over not over 100 years, but, like, a little under. But just also claiming to, like, oh, like, maybe I can also get something if I did happen to find anything, but how, like, we'll always still remember, like, moments in history.
Yeah. But it's also like we don't remember moments in history, you know? We remember this and we're sad, and we're like, oh, they were such a loving family, they were so close, they were so sweet. But then, like, I don't know, I'm always so, and, like, not annoyed, but just kind of like, ugh, because history happens again, and it's like, oh, can't you just...
We can tell.
Yeah, like, can't you just analyze and, I don't know, like, think about it, and maybe not.
Like, I know something that we experienced in recent years of COVID, like, that was very much history repeated itself.
Yeah.
From over 100 years ago. I believe it was the swine flu. Or something of the variety. I forget exactly which one.
Yeah, it was the... Yeah, it was a flu. I don't remember which one it was.
A flu.
It was just the flu. You're welcome, guys.
We help experts here. But having that kind of history repeats itself, and not like, oh, like, I barely remember what went on during time. I feel like I'm just, like, losing what happened then. Like, I remember it briefly, and it would be, like, a grandma being, like, to my kids, oh, I remember when I was younger, I went through a pandemic. You guys have it so great. And then they'll, like, get me stuff.
Okay. But then I feel like your grandkids will come, like, they might also have a pandemic, and then they will just be like, this is horrible, this never happened before, but it will be like, this happened so many times in history, and you just don't pay attention.
Is this something about our society and how far we actually come with health and medicine itself? It doesn't seem like it's going that well. Like, if history is able to repeat itself, why? It's just always these new genes and, like, genetics reoccurring, because as we, like, progress as humans, we're also being exposed to more and more things that our body is now, like, used to fighting against. So then they adapt, they evolve, and, like, become something more, and that we have to, like, combat and fight.
Yeah. But also to bring us back away from medicine. It's always like, it's like, if it's not the same story, people think it's a new, completely different thing. Mm-hmm. But then it's just the same story with, like, different characters. It's like, you know, like Hallmark. Like, history's Hallmark. It's like the same thing happening over and over again, but different characters.
It's like all the vampire movies.
I haven't watched them.
Same thing happening, just different people. Just kidding. I love my Vampire Diaries.
Yeah.
I started watching it again recently, so never mind.
I have not watched that. I heard of it.
Are you a Damon or Stefan fan? Yeah, watch it. Or are you Elena or Catherine?
I don't know what you're on about. What are you saying?
Vampire Diaries.
Okay.
Get with it here.
Okay.
Anyway, but it's just like I was repeating and kind of what we're dealing, I feel like, now with America and our new president.
Yay. Yeah. But, like, I don't know. I was also, like, I grew up watching Anastasia, like the Fox movie, and I went to see, when the Broadway musical was, like, on Broadway, I went to see it in, like, 2016 or whatever, and it's very, like, I don't know, it always upset me that if you ask people if they know about the revolution, they bring up the movie, and they're like, yeah, in the cartoon, there was this mystical Rasputin, who was the mystical priest guy, and he was also a ghost. And it's like, no, that, like, no.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. It was also, like, it was really weird because, like, I don't know.
That's actually, like, movie sugarcoating things that, like, happen in history. So,
yeah.
I feel like it's also, like, similar, like, Pocahontas story.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like it wasn't that friendly, guys. I don't think the creatures really talked like that.
You're worried about the creatures.
Not the creatures, but, like, the whole story itself with, like, these, like, English people coming and taking over. Anyway. Not a really good depiction, but I feel like also puts that, like, white, like, history on, like, the foreline and being like, we weren't that bad. We were great. And, like, we were so fun. And, like, whitewashing it as sort. Which I feel like it's just a lot of history in our history books now, which is, like, not healthy, but whatever. I feel like we sidetracked for sure, but my bad. But definitely with the story of Anastasia, it's not a good representation for people that might not know about it, people that didn't grow up in that culture or around that time to, like, actually know.
No, I feel like I'm not upset about the fact that it's, like, that is the Disney movie. Like, I think that's fine, and it's a good movie. Like, it's genuinely a good movie. It's a good love story. But then it's also, like...
It doesn't give a good representation of what happened.
Yeah, I feel like it's also not, like... doesn't inspire curiosity to be, like... what? Like, it's not... It's, like, really removed from the real world. Which is, like... I don't know. I'm too Emerson.
When you remove it from the real world of
it's like doesn't inspire curiosity, and then you talk to people and it's like feels like this thing that's just like so big in history, and they represent this like lost world, because it's not just Russia, it's like the rest of the world. Like, you know, the revolution, the communist regime kind of impacted the whole world. But then it's just like, oh yeah, this girl named Anya was traveling with the con man.
Not your mom's name.
Literally. Yeah, and like, what? I don't, like, okay. And that's what people tell me. I'm like, have you heard of this? They're like, yeah, the movie. I'm like, no. The important historical event. History.
We'll sit you down real quick and we'll teach a little history lesson.
Yeah.
But I think that's just also, like, if you're talking to an American, like, yeah, they're gonna be like, the movie, yeah. Like, that's kind of also the whitewash history of, like, just not knowing what exactly happened. And we mostly focus on, like, U.S. because we think we're so great.
Yeah, but, like, I don't know. So, yeah, I feel like the Romanovs are, like, the story is, it tells us how, they're like a representation of how history haunts us, but in a weird way where it haunts us as a character named Anya, and not a story that we can reflect to and you know, apply to modern time.
What are you suggesting?
I'm not suggesting anything. Okay. What do you mean?
Nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's interesting. It's very sad.
Definitely. I'm surprised that they made a movie off of that. Like, I feel like just in the way that they did it. Like, it's not like a terrible movie. I just feel like
it's a good movie.
I feel like it could have been displayed better. I feel like it shouldn't have been for kids. I feel like it's not very, like, kid-friendly. But also think about Snow White and think about, like, Sleeping Beauty. Like, there are also, like, some creepy stuff going on there. That definitely shouldn't have been for kids. Like, looking back on that stuff now, if you, like, the Grimm brothers.
I feel like kids are more resilient than, like, people here give them credit for. But...
Like, maybe, but, like, you were teaching
kids
certain things.
Maybe not you as a kid.
What are you trying to say? I'm not resilient?
Nothing. But yeah, I just feel like, I don't know. I feel like it needs to be, like, I'm fine, like, it's fine that it's a movie. It's great. It's a great movie. And it's great to take inspiration from history and, like, make something else, because that's art. But it's also like, what do you mean you don't know what happened right before the revolution? I don't know.
It was just such a lost point, feels, apparently, to society. But yeah.
It's also like good true crime, you know?
True, because of the crime.
It's also like, I know we kind of like rushed, like it feels like we kind of rushed through this because there is so much information on this. Like, we wrote 5 pages of notes, and doesn't even count. Like, that doesn't cover,
like, everything.
That doesn't
there's
count
so
like
much
a
more.
fifth of it, or like an eighth. There's so much of just like the story and what happened and all the details. And it's like, even if you open the Wikipedia article, which is like, I know Wikipedia, but it's like the Wikipedia article for this case is so long. You know how usually like Wikipedia is like, you open it, you read one sentence, and you're like, okay, I know everything. But here I was like scrolling forever.
I know, I was looking at it too, and it was just like,
yeah,
it was just endless.
Hollie's miming scrolling.
I'm sorry. I'm not really
for people
good
who can't see.
Sorry, I'm a very like physically.
Yeah. But this is our episode for today. I think we have to wrap up.
We sadly do.
Yeah. And this is also our 5th episode. That means we're halfway through our episodes this semester.
That's so sad.
Yeah, that means we only have 5 left. So, yeah. Cry.
Right now.
Yeah. And you can see updates for like our future upcoming episodes on our Instagram. If you follow our Instagram at a study in purple. Yeah.
Guys, it was the only thing that was available, okay? I know it's annoying. Okay. Let's be honest.
It has like the little cartoon of us on the front. And then we also have a YouTube channel where if you missed our episodes, you have to you have to go back and listen to them. They're on our YouTube. They're linked through the Instagram. So if you find the Instagram, you can find the YouTube.
Wow. And I also wonder, if you look it up on the YouTube, you might find us, and then you might be able to also find our Instagram. Do you think they're all connected?
They should be. I don't think I connected the Instagram to the YouTube.
No.
Maybe I should.
Anyway.
It's like the red string thing.
Yeah.
You know? Like, one thing is connected to the other one, and all of them are connected together. Everything's connected.
Everything means something. I don't know. I always like going through your everyday life and like the kind of like effect of like, oh, like how you meet someone and then eventually like follows that person, and then it goes through their like everyday lives and how like it meets that person like again, and it's just like how each person lives their lives. I don't know, I find it very curious, very like,
yeah, it's almost like everything is connected, and like these stories have something to do with the present and the past and the future. Just something to think about. And this is where we're gonna leave you. Have a good night, have a good week. See you next Tuesday
at 10 p.m. for A Study in Purple.